Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Firefighters Chalkboard. We got a special guest for tonight. We've got Chief David Rhodes. Chief Rhodes is a 39-year fire service veteran who retired after spending his last 17 years as a battalion chief with the City of Atlanta Fire Department. He is the chief elder for the Georgia Smoke Diver Program and currently serves as the editor in chief for Fire Engineering Magazine. Chief, welcome to the Chalkboard.
Thanks for having me, Wayne. Good to see you.
Absolutely. I just hate that it took us so long to get together. We've had some bumps and bruises along the way, but we're going to make it work.
The way technology rolls, my man.
Yeah. Um, I want to start off by saying thank you so much for joining me on here. I really am super excited to have you here and really, really interested in what kind of things we're going to be able to bring up from a little bit of discussion. And I think everybody's in for a treat. I really do.
Let's get it.
All right. So there's so many things that we can talk about, especially, talking with you, somebody that spent so much time in the fire service with a large majority of it having to deal with educating and training one way or the other at an academy level, everything you continue to still do with FDIC, not to mention all the time and work that still goes on with just Georgia smoke divers. So what are some of your favorite memories from teaching in the past?
Well, I never was assigned as a academy full time. That was never my assignment. But I was always an adjunct instructor. So in the early days, it was teaching at the Georgia Fire Academy when it was in Marietta before they moved down to Forsyth. That was some fun stuff. I was still pretty new, but I was always sort of the instructor helper,
Hmm.
kind of cutting my teeth. And the department I was with at the time, Conyers, had a lot of instructors that were state instructors. So you wanted to hang out with them and learn. So those were good times. The move down to Forsyth was pretty cool because it was a massive, several hundred acre facility, and we moved everything down there. And so I like doing like the basic fire programs down there because you got to spend a lot of time with them. They would go on for several weeks, and even if they were the weekend classes, you'd be back for numerous weekends in a row. Um, those were great. I also enjoyed the off-campus classes. We did a ton of live burns,
Hmm.
so it was like almost every weekend you'd go somewhere in the state and we'd burn an acquired structure over Saturday and Sunday, and those were great. And then the other part of training at academy wise, like for Atlanta, was doing recruit school. I'd do like the SCBA week for a while. That was always good. And then during that whole time, always doing smoke divers, except for the little period of time where it was shut down as the academy changed administrations and stuff like that. So we were shut down between 95 and 2005. So we brought it back 2005 and then been going strong ever since. Love having it up in Dalton. Very small, intimate little areas, local department, training academy, but
Hmm.
it's cool because everything's just right there, compact. Whereas when we were down at the state, it's so big, like you got to have golf carts and shit to get between buildings and ride around. So, but just the time in the class, and then after hours talking shop with everybody at the restaurants and whatever. It's just a lot of good networking, and you learn a lot from having that group of diverse folks from all over the place, small departments, big departments, volunteers, just having the conversation and hearing what their troubles are and how they solved them. It makes you see things in a different light, go back and experiment, and then fix things in your own department. So
Yeah.
to me, that was the most beneficial out of all of it.
Yeah, a lot of times you learn more after the class than you do during the class, just off the networking and the fellowship you have with everybody. And you were talking about the contacts. I mean, contacts you make are worth their weight in gold.
Yeah.
I mean,
And then you get to see, like if you're teaching a skill or something, you get to see that skill done 30, 40 different times in a day. You see mistakes you're able to coach through, or you see something that's like, whoa, I never seen that before. That worked good. And then you go try
yep.
that. So you learn just as much teaching as you do um, taking the class sometimes.
Hmm. Yeah, because I mean, always somebody's got a trick. I seen one the other day from a different way of tying a ladder off. I was like, I never seen that before. But I paid attention. I said, "Show me again."
Yeah, yeah, and it's crazy. You think you've seen it all, then somebody comes out with something. Sometimes they do some stuff that's kind of like, I don't think that'll work every time, but every now and then you see something that's just like, that's so simple. As why didn't I think of that?
Yeah,
So it's fun. It's fun interacting on that level. I think you get a good sense of where people are. You feel like you're contributing, and I've been doing it so long. It's hard to go anywhere in the state without running into somebody that's had a class from you, or you were in a class with, or something, and don't always remember them right off the bat. But when they start talking about when and where, things start coming back. But as an instructor, it's a lot easier for the students to remember you as one of two or three instructors than it is for you to remember 30 or 40
abs-
students.
absolutely. I've got a new group in a class right now, and I'm struggling trying to remember some names and stuff, and they kind of look at me. I said, "You've got one name to remember. I've got 40. I mean, give the old guy a break." Um,
Some stand out and you won't forget,
yeah,
not
absolutely.
always for good reasons.
One way or the other.
Yeah.
But what about like when you got your start with FDIC? 'Cause I heard you talking to other people in the past about how, you cut your teeth there, setting up props and helping, doing logistics and stuff.
So actually, my first FDIC experience was probably around 97, 98, and I was actually teaching confined space rescue with a group, Scott Millsap's instructor cadre. We were called ESE Training Associates at that time, and we were teaching two or three classes at FDIC. So we did confined space, high angle rope, and then a class called Axioms of Leadership. And we did that for a couple of years, and then um, I ended up being union president in '98 in Atlanta, and that took a ton of my time. And
Sure.
so I wasn't able to get out and teach as much as I had been, and I didn't feel comfortable. I'm like, they wanted me to come teach, and I'm like, look, I hadn't been doing any of this stuff for the last year. So I said, I'll come, but, I'll come and help. And so Scott was like, well, I need somebody to help, with logistics, get the trailers up here, um, help with equipment. So I did that, volunteered to do that. And I did that for, I think, two years in a row. I did that. And then they kind of changed hands with all the hierarchy of the training, um, and then that's when they actually asked Scott if he would take over all the training management for FDIC, and then Scott put a team together, and then since I'd been doing the logistics for him for the last couple of years, he put me over logistics for everything, and then put another guy that worked with us, Brent Hollander, who's still with us. He's running all the hot now, put him as the safety officer, which is hilarious in retrospect. Um, and then we had John O'Connell, Mike Nasta, Rick Fritz were the other three of us that were sort of the lead hands-on training people, and ended up, learning a ton about logistics. And the logistics there had gone from basically a lumber list for the collapse class, and then everybody was sort of on their own. A few Halligans got given out and some flashlights, to us having our own warehouse, um, full of stuff year round. We try to provide as much of everything as we could for the instructors. They didn't have to do all that work on their own through the local departments. And it went from three of us to 10 of us to 70 of us. And that
Wow.
was the growth over the years. But I did that, from 2003 up until 3 years ago.
Hmm. I know that's a lot. That's a lot of growth.
Yeah, I learned that was probably, I got into it. I took all the FEMA incident management classes, incident commander. During that whole period, I was the incident commander for the state IMT. I took the logistics chief. I took operations chief, finance. plans. I did them all, and most of those were week-long deals.
Hmm.
Um, and what I learned was I had built my own system to run logistics, and and then I did it for, I don't know, 7 years prior to having any of this training. When I got the training, I realized I'd pretty much built the same system. I didn't call the forms what they called them in the system, but I had a form for almost everything that the national system had. And prior to that, I'd had incident command classes, your basic stuff, and I was pretty good with like the type 4, type 5 fire incident command stuff, but didn't know
Hmm.
that much about the big picture once you get up to like 3, 2, and 1 class incidents, type incidents. So it was eye opening. I learned more about managing through that process than anything else. Helped me be a little more organized in all my other stuff. So it was good. I highly recommend anybody, whether you're a captain, especially like battalion chief level up, you should get into not the ICS 100, 200, 300. Like, I mean, you got to have that, but like get into those full like 40 and 80-hour classes, because they teach you systems and how to build an organization from scratch, and you can use it for anything to manage anything. It's
Yeah,
perfect.
I was talking to a guy the other day that he said that Texas Texas Extension, I think, they had a big thing going on in College Station where they had like a big full sim lab, and it's
Hmm.
FEMA backed and stuff, and it's nothing but ICS for natural disasters and stuff like that.
It's a whole
So
different
just
ball game. I mean, we're used to going to a house fire and your operations, and that's pretty much it. It's operations. You pack up, you handle everything else yourself, pack up and go back to the house. But once you start getting past, 5, 6 hours of operations, now you got to
hmm.
start worrying about feeding people and relief crews, swapping out, fueling trucks. And that takes a whole group of people just to manage that piece of it. Then
Oh,
you take that
absolutely.
further to multi-day incidents.
Hmm.
And then you've got a real, um, it's kind of like the difference between chess and checkers, I guess. And but
I
it's
like that.
fun. I've really enjoyed it. My first taste of incident command stuff was all the way back in my first department. A guy taught me ICS they put me in charge of the Halloween carnival, and it was for kids, called Safe Kids. Probably had 400 or 500 kids come, and we had to get all the candy. We had to screen it. That was back when they were putting razor blades and stuff
Hmm.
and all that crazy junk. So we had to keep it locked up. We had to screen it all. And then we had the various carnival type events, whether it was a dunk tank, spook house, needle in the haystack, bobbing for apples, all the typical stuff that you did like back in the 80s. And you had to have security and all that. So one of the lieutenants there, Mike Lee, set me down and he goes, "Well, they put you in charge of this, but let me draw you out, kind of how you need to manage this thing." And so he drew it out on a piece of paper. And that was my first little taste of like incident command for a big event, you know.
Yeah, that's
And
logistics 101 right there.
it gave me perspective. And then as I got into teaching, and doing live fire burns. And then 1403 came along, and you had to have command set up. So I got a pretty early indoctrination into into command, and I enjoyed the strategy of it. Especially, I mean, obviously, I love a good fire, apartment fire, multi alarm fire, high rise. All those were challenging, but those type 3 uh, tornado responses and missing persons and things like that, they're really challenging, because it's such a big area and you're coordinating so many different resources. So you learn a lot, and then you take those lessons and you apply them to the smaller events too. It makes you even better. That's where I learned the difference in, you can manage those scale operations without seeing everything at one time, but it's very hard to do because you don't really have the staff in place like you do on a type 3 if
Hmm.
for a house fire. Everybody's like, oh, you can manage that from down the street. Well, you can, but you got to have some really good people outside giving
Exactly.
you some great reports, and that usually doesn't happen in most organizations. That's not the everybody's working, so you got to be up there where you can see it. And as a battalion chief, I always wanted to be either right up there in front where I could see. And we're fortunate we had command technicians, which are chief's aides, and so they could
Okay.
run the boards and track and all. And you could walk around and not have to worry about like not getting something down on the board, so you could focus on the incident and deploying people where they needed to be.
I like the fact that they use it as a different a calling, but having that chief aide that way it takes one of the worry off of you, so you can
Yeah,
concentrate
and when
more on
you're
your.
responding, you can be writing down all the assignments that are being made, and so when you get there, you don't have to ask.
Yeah.
Whether if you're driving, you're having to drive, run the siren and the horn and make sure nobody hits you, and then you're trying to listen to the fire at the same time and not wreck. And you get there and you basically have to ask, who you got where, you know.
Yeah.
So it's
Mhm.
definitely a whole nother level, but it was fun. I
Mhm.
enjoyed it. I enjoyed all the challenges.
Me too. I enjoy the whole ICS thing. I've done the 1398 whatever, done the whole way through. But we deal with a lot of urban interface fires a lot of times, and not only that, with us being right on the coast, we deal with a lot of flooding. And we've had calls over the years where we really have to go to that Type 3 management team work and everything. And um, as aggravating as it is to get everything rolling, once you get all the pieces of the puzzle in place, it's actually neat to watch how all of it works,
Oh
because
yeah.
it's designed to run a certain way, and as long as everybody stays in their little part of the puzzle piece, it works good.
Yep. Yep. And it's fun too. That's like lesson number one is when you go in, if we would get deployed into a jurisdiction outside of like for the state team, whether it was hurricane, tornado, whatever, is um, you don't go in and stop anything. You go in and ask questions, observe, and it takes you a little while to get your stuff set up, and you're actually planning for the next operational period there for a little while. And so you're finding out, you're doing recon, you're getting a feel. I always would like to take like a helicopter tour of the area so you could see. And if it wasn't me, then at least like one of the ops chiefs get up and see what we're dealing with, and then narrow your focus down to what is it you want us to handle. I think a lot of those teams go in and they think they're going to run everything. They're going to run the city, the garbage, the water department, and all that. And it's like you really got to narrow it down to a couple of tasks that are accomplishable that they don't have the resources to do, like debris removal and structure clearing and search and rescue and debris removal. Those are going to be top of the list on everything from a hurricane to a tornado or a flood, whatever. Is like get the structure search. You have to do debris removal to get to them to open at least one lane of the roads. So you got your chainsaw teams out, your skid steers, and you're ordering more resources and all that. And then it gets to where you've got everything searched. And now the big thing is get all the roads open and then start, getting the debris hauled off to the right spot and start getting power to some of the critical infrastructure. But it's difficult. A type 3 team is good for a couple of tasks, but you can't go in there and take over everything. You can have
Mm.
multiple type 3 teams and each team be managing something different. But we'd roll in. There's a few times we went kind of heavy with about 15 people, but most of the time you were around 7 to 10 people on your team. So and then utilize the low. I'd always try to never make it feel like we were coming in to take over. We were coming in to support, and we always included the local firefighters, rescue folks. They were always part of the operation because they were the staffing. We may get more in and give them some relief, but We didn't want to take away the experience and things that they needed to do. Some people come in and want to sign the locals to anything. They'll just keep them kind of in reserve. And it's like, it's their community.
Hmm.
Like, put your fill-in folks in reserve for a fire that might happen or what have you, and get your locals know the area. So that was a big thing to me, is make sure you didn't exclude them from their own operation.
Absolutely.
It's kind of like somebody beating you into your own fire.
We won't talk about that. Uh, so, one of the things I've always wondered about, how the amount of excitement you've got to have, even though I know you've got a very stressful job right now with the editor in chief. I can only dream the stress you're dealing with, but you've got to have like a breath of fresh air with all the new authors and stuff you see them bringing, trying to put material in, stuff like that, trying to get published. Because it's almost like, where you're sitting, you get a constant reassurance that training in the fire service is alive and well, and people are wanting to thrive with it. I mean, that's something you get to see that a lot of us don't.
Yeah.
I'd love for you to talk on that.
Yeah. It's, I don't know how many we get a day, but across the four different brands that we have out there, I mean, we're probably getting 6 to 8 submissions a day,
Okay.
you know, um, across the brands. And some are awesome, some are okay, some need work. Most everything that gets submitted has some value to it. It may need a lot of work, or it may need to be further developed. Sometimes somebody might submit something. Hey, I wrote an article. It's 400 words. And it's like, it's more like a
That ain't a lot to
statement.
work with.
It's more like a statement. Yeah. But it may be really good
Hmm.
stuff. It's just not fully developed. And so, I got Mike Champo helping me. He's sort of, we call him the fixer. So if we get a technical article that needs a little work, or it's like, hey, this is good, but needs to be more detail here, then he'll work with the author, especially the new ones that haven't written before, and he'll get them squared away. After two or three, then they kind of figure out the system, and their quality gets better and better. But we got an excellent staff. Our copy editors, managing editors, web editors, everybody is there to, I mean, they totally believe in the mission of educating the fire service. And um, we don't bat 1,000 every time. Every now and then something goes out that may have something in it that may have got missed or something. But I'd say we bat 950 consistently, on what we send out, maybe even a little higher than that. So that's a definite point of pride, is that the staff cares enough. And there's so much, I can't see it all.
Yeah.
It's there's so much getting published every day, between the web, the print stuff, and then there's online fire engineering training classes being developed and done. So it takes the full team working on it, every single day, to make sure it happens. The book proposals I read, I mean, they're coming in probably one a week or more. And we're probably publishing 20 to 25 books a year. Um,
Wow.
so you got to read those proposals, and sometimes you need to read 5, 6 chapters just to get a feel, to see if it's going in the right direction, and then turn that over to another group of staff that does the book development and all. So, but there's a lot of good people out there. There's a lot of good ideas, and kind of look at the position as, it's it's an ability to provide a platform for people that wouldn't necessarily get heard, to be heard. And people are like, well, I can just publish my article myself online. I can put it on my Facebook page or whatever, and people do that every day with comments and content. But there's a level of gravitas and authority that goes with fire engineering, gyms, fire apparatus and emergency equipment, firefighter nation, that's a little more than somebody's personal page. It says, hey, this has been looked at by peers. It's been reviewed by subject matter folks, and it was worthy of us putting on our brand. And so that's a higher level of accountability, I guess, is what I'm looking for. So it's a higher level. So it should mean something more to you than just putting it um, on your own page, and then it gets it out there to a wider audience. And so
Oh yeah.
that's a big responsibility too, because if you publish something from somebody and it turns out they're not who you thought they were or whatever, then you kind of wear that as well. And that
Hmm.
doesn't happen very often, but every now and then, something happens. We find out that somebody borrowed a little material over here, or they borrowed a little over there and didn't give credit, but it's hard. It's such a niche market. It's hard to be on top of that uh, all the time. But that's sort of that's the stressful part is, oh, are we, are we, is this legitimate? This guy's stuff. We don't see it anywhere else. We've run it through the systems and
Hmm.
all, but then you still may find something that's, you know,
Well, I mean, just like in the world of academia, they say nobody has an original thought. Said every thought comes from somewhere. But I know a lot of people that look at things the same way I do. I've just I'm not saying I plagiarized anything in anything I've written, but it's what I grew up with, what my background is, and you
yeah,
write papers on it. And that's not saying that it's an original thought by me. It's There's a lot of people through the fire service that have experienced things, and
yeah.
just
You're just putting
some people
your
write and some
putting your
don't.
personal take on it. It's like,
Yeah.
there's only so many ways to search or so many ways to stretch lines. They've been doing it for years. Unless you truly come up with something new, you're just regurgitating or refining something that's, been out there for a
Oh yeah.
while. But it's important, and we get this a lot. People will say, I'll be talking to somebody that's maybe, in their 30s, and they're like, "Well, I don't know what to write. Everything's already been written." You know, I mean, so and so does forcible entry, and so does search, and I don't know what I would say that's anything different. And it's like, but it's a new audience. The audience is constantly like refreshing with younger folks. They need to hear it from somebody their age.
And they're hungry for it too.
Yeah, they are.
Mhm.
And so it's not that you're copying, but it's like put your experience on it. Put out a technique and then look, and so, I have to write an editorial every month, and it doesn't sound like that much, but you got to come up with a new idea, new fresh thing. And so if I ever get stuck, I'll run right over to Brennan's book uh, there on the poster, and I'll just scroll through the table of contents, or I'll go to Bobby's book and I'll scroll through the table of contents, and then something catches my eye. I'll go and read what they had to say, and then I may write the same subject matter, but I'm writing it from me. Like,
Mhm.
this is what I experienced with it, or this is how I did something, or my thoughts on it.
One of the best ways I heard it put to me a couple years ago was open up the New Testament and how many versions of the same thing is one right after another. It's just
Yeah.
through a different set of eyes.
Yeah. It tells you
I mean,
different. Yeah. It tells you the same story, but different. Yep.
hmm
Different
and,
delivery, and hope
and I
and
do.
hope that something sticks.
Yeah, I do the same thing just like you're doing. I mean, I'm in Chief Brunacini's book all the time right before I go to talk to recruits and stuff like that. And it's not my stuff. I say it's his, but I mean it keeps the brain moving. It keeps old ideas still work now. We don't have to have everything bright and brand new. Sometimes we just need to revisit things.
And that, you know, very senior. That has probably been the most awesome thing about the whole fire engineering FDIC journey from 1997 to now is I physically knew all of those people and had relationships with them where, I mean, I still got all their phone numbers in my phone where I would, talk to them years ago and go
Really?
to different events. And so, once you start hanging around with folks of that caliber, you just start learning so much. I mean, you're picking up on things and not even realizing what it's setting you up for, in the future. But that the whole thing has just been unreal.
That's when I like to be the dumbest guy in the room.
Oh,
I don't know.
always. That's always me. I think I even wrote that at some point.
Uh, so
Definitely when I was at the UL studies and stuff, that was me.
that's me the majority of the time.
Yeah.
Um, so since the majority of a lot of my listeners and stuff, I'm growing every day. And I want it to keep growing because I think it's a really good platform. Because in the world of social media, we've got platforms everywhere on strategies and tactics and firehouse culture and things like that. But I tried to start a platform that are just for, based on students and instructors. Because we really don't have a lot for instructors to go back and forth and bouncing ideas because a lot of times the only networking we do are at these conferences and stuff and you get to be with other like-minded people. So I figured, what the heck? Let's start a platform for fire instructors and let's talk to each other and you know, talk shop and sometimes let's get students on here, not a rookie, but a 1 to 2 year student, what are you looking for in instructors? Because dialogue changes, the needs of students change, and we as instructors we need to evolve with them and change that way they're benefiting from what we're actually talking about. And with the majority of them being instructors, and a lot of them have got the same dreams I do. One day I hope to make it to the stage. I hope to make it FBIC one day. What kind of advice, in the mentor role, would you suggest a lot of the younger instructors that are up and coming so they can be the best at that job, that role of an instructor in the fire service?
Um, First is don't take on teaching things that you haven't done.
Amen.
That's the biggest one. So, and even me, I mean, I know I got a huge platform and audience, but like literally it's been, I think the last time that I actually did a search at an incident was probably 12 plus years ago. And it was actually as a battalion chief showing up early at an apartment and being the aide going up and knocking out a few, apartments on the exposure apartments real
Yeah.
quick because we had reports of people still trapped.
Sure. Sure.
All right. So I'm disciplined enough. I'm not out there teaching people how to search. I'm talking theory. I'm talking sizing up to decide where to search, but physically as like sit here in the hallway as the point man and go this way or that way. Um, Even probably the last stuff I did that was close to super hands on was Wichita Hot. And I would explain the VES to the students. And then I had a couple firefighters that were still running calls and on the trucks doing the inside stuff like you make sure they're going where they're supposed to be and that they're doing the right things, because that's not what I was doing. I can teach leadership stuff. I can teach command stuff because those things like don't really change that much. Your perspective changes some, but I can teach from experience. So I limit myself. If somebody calls me right now and says, "Hey, Chief Rhodes, we want you to come teach forcible entry at so and so conference," no, I'm not doing it. I mean, like I'll come speak, I'll come help, whatever you want me to do, but that's not. I don't do that. I haven't done that in years. You know. Uh, so I think that's an important thing. Teach stuff that you can do and don't worry so much about the size of your department or whatever. Is like there's stuff for people to learn from every size department. And so I always laugh, and I got tons of friends on FDNY and people that are working like Champ and Ray's on the board. I mean, the list just goes on. Dragonetti, yeah, there's probably 20, 30 guys that are pretty close in the system. And I always laugh when somebody's out in some, you know, rural, small area, suburbs, and everybody wants to take the New York tactics. And I'm like, well, you can't do them. I mean, it's cool to kind of learn about it and stuff, but like you really can't do it because in their system, there's like five guys.
I want to take the two-man engine company class.
Yeah, yeah. Most people need the 2 and 3 man engine company class. They don't need, I mean, it's great to see how it works. If you ever had the situation, it makes you think, okay, I got to put 5 engines together to accomplish getting the line up to the fifth floor. you know, that gives me like 8 people and a couple drivers out pumping. It's all
Right.
hands on deck to get this line. And so it's cool and it's good to know about it, but most people need to know how to function in that suburban and rural environment. And it's really interesting because I functioned in both. Started out small city in the suburbs, then small county in the suburbs, and then big city urban. And
Hmm.
I was blown away at how ineffective we were in the big city. I can remember waiting on water for I don't know how long, watching this apartment just get bigger, bigger. Fire was in the kitchen, then it was in the living room, and this was before we shut doors. And I'm standing there like charge the line, waiting on a reverse out. 500 feet down the road, hooking up. Some problem happened, didn't get water, kink in the line, da da da. And I'm thinking, by myself in my old apartment, well, me and one other person, I
Hmm.
could have put this fire out 20 times because we pulled up, snatched a pre-connect, dumped tank water on it, done.
Yep.
And so when, the fast water classes started coming out and you know, fast water, fast this, I was like, yeah, I saw it happen. It works.
And we were doing that in the
You do it
'90s.
out of necessity. You don't
Yeah.
do it. It's not so much, and maybe somebody was before I was paying that much attention, but it wasn't so much like everybody sat down and developed this great strategy to be effective. That's all you had. So that's what
Yeah.
you
That
did.
was good.
It was like get her done, like pull line. And it's almost like that joke that the what was that thing? It's old, but the fire SUV. Remember the little comedian dude that drove the fire SUV? He goes, "I want to
Hmm.
drive the fire SUV." He goes, "We're going to put water on the fire until the fire goes out. We're going to use a similar strategy over here." It's really that simple a lot of times.
Well, I mean, like when I first started in the volley days, you'd have a volunteer go to the firehouse, they'd pick the rig up, and middle of the daytime, you might have one or two people, and then somebody drives the engine there. So the time they'd pull the pumper up, you'd rip the pre-connect, and the time he could charge it, you're going to work. Because if you don't put water on it, what's going to happen? It's going to get bigger.
Yeah, we had
I
20
mean,
gallons of water. We put most of the fires out with that tank water. We knocked them down with less than that and got a quick search. Hopefully, the second engine got there, which gave you 2 people inside.
and more
Maybe.
water.
And county had 750 on their rig, so that gave us another 750. But I mean, it was all or nothing. It either worked or it didn't. Like there wasn't a whole lot of in between. It was either you put it out quickly or it burned to the ground.
Yeah.
Because you just didn't have enough resources and water. Now, when you went to mid-rise type, multi-story apartments and things like that, that's when it got tricky. But your typical 1, 2 story house fire, you know, 1,700 to 3,000 square feet. Those were nothing.
I
Uh,
used to love those shotgun houses. I mean,
Old mill houses and
hmm
yeah, and they never collapsed. I mean, you could burn them for hours, and that's what we
they
always
were all fat lighter.
yeah, that's what we burned in all of our required structure classes for the most part. It was all older farmhouses or mill type houses, true dimensional.
That's what a lot of them were from the UL burns in Spartanburg too, right? Weren't they a lot of the old
Yeah,
mill houses?
yeah. Good old Class A fires.
Oh yeah.
Lots of
Well,
time, and you got time to do all kinds of stuff in there. You start getting
and
all these carpets and plastics and all that stuff, you run out of time quick.
Yeah, the smoke was black, but because it weren't from carpet and upholstery, it was just out of the turpentine and the pine wood.
Yeah, largely. Yeah, I had a couple flash over in those old pine paneling walls.
Tongue and groove ceilings, the whole 9 yards. Um, so I was having a conversation the other day on the podcast with another guy, and we were talking about something that was said to me from one of my mentors when I started, teaching. And he told me one of the most common things that's said to a probie is that God gave you two ears and one mouth for a reason. But it was turned to me when I started teaching. He said, don't forget that God gave you the same thing. He gave you two ears and one mouth for a reason. So shut your mouth sometimes and tell the student and listen to the students because they'll tell you what they need to be successful. And I've noticed that so much more with the younger people that are in classes now. They're not, a lot of times they're asking questions and stuff, and they're not trying to buck you or talk you over. They're actually almost like they're trying to validate their thoughts to make sure
Mhm.
what they're thinking is meshing with you. And I've learned that a lot of times if we just take a second and listen to them, they're not ashamed to tell you what they need in their way of learning to be successful. And that's completely different than how it was whenever I was learning how to do it because we didn't say nothing. You know,
Yeah. Why did you put that rifle together so fast, Gump? Because you
you
told
told
me
me
to, sir.
right.
Yeah. No, it is, and my teaching style classroom is I ask a lot of questions.
Hmm.
It's just sort of natural. It's like I'm rolling along, and if I'm not getting questions, then I start asking questions, and I'll sit there for a minute and be like, somebody got to say something. Like, and I got that from, again, right behind me there, honoring a legend. I can't see his picture, but Tom Brennan,
Yep.
from my days at FDIC when he was still alive and hanging around. And he would always ask you questions. And it'd be, you'd think maybe he's with Bobby Halton or Brunacini or whoever, and you're just driving the car or whatever. And he would, he'd start up a conversation and all, and then he'd look at you and he'd say, what's blah, 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 blah. And then you're afraid to answer because you don't want to be wrong and embarrass yourself, right? And then you'd come up with an answer, and then he'd be, that's right. Or did you think about this? And he'd take you down that path, but he's just trying to get you thinking.
Yeah.
And maybe there's not a right answer, but he wants you to answer, and then he wants to ask you why you said that. And then you
Hmm.
got to explain yourself. And he goes, okay, I can see that. Because maybe it is. Maybe your answer is based off of two people, where his is based off of five people, or, like vertical ventilation. You know, if you got two people on two engines on the scene, you don't need to be worried about vertical ventilation.
No, I'm going to
There's
go hydraulic.
there's plenty of other stuff to do that is going to be more beneficial to the victim than that.
Hmm.
You change that to 12 people on the scene. Now you got a whole different scenario. You can do multiple things at one time, and it makes sense to do some of those things. But, um, you know, but they say politics are local, firefighting's local, and it's all based on building construction and staffing.
Yes.
And, and so you adapt to make that. But yeah, I love asking questions and getting involved. I usually tell that story, and actually the way Brennan would be, if you didn't answer him right away, he would go, "All right, kid, I need to hear something. I don't give this shit away for free." He's not charging you money for it, but he's charging you some mental capital. Like, he's going to tell you some more stuff, but you got to engage with him
Got
too.
to pound the pump.
And
Yeah.
as soon as that first student asks a question, there's 10 other ones that were thinking the same thing. They
Oh
just didn't
yeah.
say nothing. And so
It's and
I
it's
love somebody to like challenge, not like nasty challenge you, but you know, like on the vertical ventilation, you got four people. Well, why would you not? I would. And then you go back and forth and you talk about the whys and the why nots. And you know,
the whys are important.
most of the time you leave with an understanding. Every now and then you run into somebody that it wouldn't matter if who was standing up there. It's like they got their idea, and they're sticking with it. But
I'm
that's
I'm
rare.
I'm I'm like you. I like to be. I'm not going to say challenged, but I like to be engaged to where I explain my thoughts. Because a lot of times then it gives them a different grasp of how I'm looking at it, and they might put their own twist on it, come up with it a better way for them. But it's using me as a resource, getting that information from me. I mean, every one of us do it. We dig into other people that we look up to for information and stuff.
I love challenging, especially you got career academy or state academy folks that teach basic firefighter search, and they always start at the front door and go right or left on a search pattern or whatever. I love, like, I'm like, why do you do that? Why would you do that at 2 o'clock in the morning? Why do you, in a 2-story house that you've run 100 EMS calls in the neighborhood, all the bedrooms are upstairs, and it's
Mhm.
2 o'clock in the morning. Somebody's like, well, people work different schedules, blah 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 blah. And I'm like, we're in the gambling business. We're in the blackjack business. We play the odds. We have to play the odds because we don't have enough people to do everything at once. But why would they be in the living room? The odds are they're going to be in the bedroom. And same as playing blackjack. There's a blackjack book that tells you what to do in every situation. If the dealer has this, you do this. If you have this, you do this. It tells you when to hit, when to split, when to double down. It tells you everything. It doesn't mean you're going to win every hand if you follow it, but it gives you the highest probability of winning.
There you go.
And that's what you need for search, is
Hmm.
like you got to search the highest probability areas and work your way, you know, back and then get all the areas at some point. So I could sit and talk that kind of search stuff, all day with somebody. Ventilation stuff, it took me a while to get my head around that. So what I use now to teach ventilation is a green egg or a Komodo Joe grill. Front doors on the bottom, roofs on the top. If there's no interaction, what happens?
Hmm.
900 to 1200 degree steak, if that's what you want, or whatever. Close the front, close the top. It actually cools down
Hmm.
on the inside, and unless it's gotten out of control already, and then you can't cool the damn thing down without opening the lid. But you got to open the whole lid. You got to open the
Yeah.
lid all the way up.
Not just that little bit. You got to let it. Yeah.
Right. And so
So
it's important to know, like, it's not do you ventilate or do you not ventilate. It's important to know when you ventilate and what type of ventilation you do, because the effects.
it
You
goes
know
back
what's
into
going to
studying
happen.
the craft.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
truly studying the craft.
and the science is the same for everything, and it was the same during the legacy fuel loads. The science was still the same. The difference is 20 minutes and 3 minutes.
Hmm.
You
Different, the
had a lot.
different in fuel
You had a lot
packages.
more
Yeah.
time. You had a lot more time to screw around and get your water to the fire. When you had 20 minutes than you do when it's too rich to burn. When you get there, you open the front door,
Yep.
you get a boom.
So you said something a second ago, and you said talking about in the business and gambling and stuff, but you also brought up a point in there that we're in the people business, so we go and do what's best for those people. So here's something I want to dig deep into, and I know we're gonna roll. We can probably do a whole podcast episode on just this one thing because this is something I'm a huge believer in. And in your speech this year at FDIC, you spoke about how we need to return to servant leadership as a focused trait and letting serving become the sole purpose of our existence. And I agree with that 5,000%. I'm a believer that it is my job to serve my citizens in my department, and my job is how I train my recruits. I am that full time guy working at the training academy. And in order for me to be a true servant and steward, I've got to serve those recruits and give them everything I've got so they can, when they graduate, they can go out in the street and, you know, that servant mindset is started with them, or me doing it with them so they have that example. So when they go out in the street, they can have that servant mindset. Because some people say it starts from the top and comes down. I believe that if we start it from day one in the mentoring phase, it'll never go away if we lock those roots in.
100%. Yeah, it's amazing when you focus outward instead of inward, a lot of other problems go away.
Hmm.
I always say that like one of the best if you're bummed out, you're down in the dumps, poor pitiful me, I didn't get promoted, I didn't get this, I didn't get whatever, and just like bothering you really, really bad, and you're like, this is horrible. And then you start sitting around and that's all you think about. Do something out of the playbook. Go volunteer a day at the food bank
Hmm.
and see who comes to get food. Then you're like, well, this ain't too bad. you
Yeah.
know, I
Changes perspective on things.
still got my job. And it doesn't mean that it was right or wrong. It doesn't mean that you didn't get screwed over. That's not the point. It's not telling you that something bad didn't happen or whatever. It's just putting it all in perspective of like whatever. So, crew's in a funk. Something's happened. Maybe you lost somebody. Maybe somebody quit or maybe somebody got fired and it kind of disrupted the mojo of the crew. Go do some kind of project. Go work on build a new prop. Go, um, go freaking nursing home and hand out cookies or something. Make somebody's day. With some kind of gesture other than just sitting there and wallowing in the pity. So I think it's super important for the servant leadership to be instilled because that's really the only reason we're there is to provide that service. And it's not just to put out fires, it's whatever somebody needs doing. And obviously people can abuse the system and there's things you have to do to get through that. But if somebody needs you for something, um, until they're abusing you, you look at it as if they don't have anybody else and you're the only, hope they had at getting help for that particular situation. And you always want to move them into some other service that can help them, whether it's social services or help or whatever. But those first few weeks that something's going on with somebody, they're falling a lot or whatever, you can't get upset with them calling, especially if they don't have anybody there.
Well, a lot of times they don't know the available resources to assist them, and we can
You
be
got to
that
match them
person that
up.
gets it rolling.
100%. That ought to be, I mean, every fire apparatus ought to have a local playbook on all the resources that are available. And at minimum, the dispatch center needs it, but you ought to have it on your rig so that you can, if there's flyers, if there's pamphlets, and then don't just hand them a pamphlet, like make the phone call and and hand them the phone
Oh
to
yeah,
the person, um, and then follow up. Go back and check on them.
that's
And
one of the big things.
yeah,
That's one of the big things is making sure you follow up. Or
yeah.
if if you're on vacation or whatever, pass it on to the next crew. Hey, we had this going on. Can you go check on them?
We had a city council person. He was really good to me. He was old guy who was involved in the civil rights movement back in the day, and he was public safety director. He loved the fire department. He did all kinds of stuff and helped me when I was union president with advice and with strategy to get through stuff through council. And we had more council people than I think we got state representatives. We had a huge city council, and he ended up getting cancer and getting pretty debilitated. And even as a city council person, he didn't have a whole lot of family and resources. And the guys at his station went and cut his grass all the time. They just go. They didn't ask whatever. They just took the station lawnmower over there and cut his grass for him.
Yeah,
For a couple of years. Um, and that's kind of stuff you don't
Well,
get ordered to do that. That's just
I mean, I read a thing the other day. Somebody was throwing an attaboy out, because a lot of times we don't get to attaboys when somebody does good stuff. We don't have a problem, the word spreading when something crappy happens, and but apparently they had a medical call. The engine went to go back. The medic crew up on a run, and the guy was cutting his grass halfway through. Had a medical thing. They took him to the ER, and he was an elderly gentleman. His wife left to go take care of him. The medic crew took off. The engine stayed there and finished mowing the grass for the guy. I mean, that's true servant. That is truly taking care of the people. That I mean, I'm telling you, Bruno's up there smiling down after that one because that's right in the book. I
really
mean,
good story. Yeah. I like the one where they finished the concrete for the guy.
I hadn't heard that one.
So it was actually a contractor that had a stroke or something, and um, they just poured a driveway or sidewalk or something, and he hadn't quite finished it. And you only get one chance. You
Hmm.
can't come back without tearing it out. And so they got him and took him, and one of the guys knew what he was doing, so they like finished screeding off the concrete, floated it with his tools, and then broomed it and finished it up because he was going to lose, a couple $1,000
Oh yeah,
if it set up and wasn't right. He'd have to tear it out. So they just finished it.
that is awesome.
It's awesome. Matter of fact, they may have called somebody over that they knew what they were doing. It seems like that may have been the story, that they called somebody over that was at another station, and they actually all kind of pitched in and finished off whatever it was. I think it was a driveway. But yeah, you hear about that stuff all the time.
Yeah, I
Securing the
mean,
house, locking it up. Uh, uh,
the true
car
definition
wreck,
of integrity.
car
That's
wreck,
truly.
car wreck with personal belongings in it instead of it going to the impound yard or whatever. Maybe you grab a bag and put stuff in it and tie it up and send it to the hospital with them, or take it to the hospital, give it to a family member, just little stuff like that.
Yeah, doing the right thing. I'm a huge fan of Dr. Rick Rigsby, and huge motivational speaker. He does a lot of good stuff, and one of the biggest things he says a lot of times in a lot of his speeches is make sure that your servant's towel is huge and used. And and another big thing he says that is so hilarious. He goes, and this goes into it. Not with the servant part, but it says ego is the anesthesia that deadens the pain of stupidity. I mean, and
Skeleton press or something. Somebody was using that. I just saw that the other day myself. It was awesome.
but I mean, it was part of his speech when he done it for California Maritime. It was really great, and but it puts it into perspective of it's too easy to be a servant and do the right thing instead of trying to be egotistic. I mean,
Yeah. It's sacrifice on your part. You're sacrificing fun and what you want to do to help somebody else out. You know, it'd have been a lot more fun to go back to the station instead of finishing that concrete and worked on some RIT drills, or, cooked a big dinner or whatever it was you had planned to do. But it makes a difference. And, it's the right thing to do, but it actually is smart from a business perspective, because you can't buy that kind of PR.
no, that's a win all day long
And
in the eyes of the
so
public. Oh
so
man,
when budget time comes or whatever, if you've got an issue and your firefighters are pushing for new equipment or whatever, those people are going to support you because they know you're always there for them.
yeah,
On the other
exactly.
hand, if you what was another one of Bruno's was like, if we saw somebody with a flat tire on the side of the road, we'd blow diesel smoke in their face and keep on going. At one point. And it's like, if they see that's what you do, then they're not going to support you. They'll be like, those
Hmm.
guys are jerks.
I mean, just doing the right thing, taking care of the people. Sometimes the smallest things mean the most. I mean, um, so I believe our company officers and the senior guys in the firehouse, they're the true trainers of the fire service. I say it all the time. My job as a training officer is to lay down the basic foundation for the guys to go out in the street and truly learn how to do the job. I'm there to help just get them started. And what do you think, or what do you feel that we can do extra with the recruits to try to get them into the mindset to be more open minded to learning from that senior people in the street?
Biggest thing is tell them the truth. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, we're teaching you. You want to be as realistic as you can, but everybody, training officers are in the trap. You want to teach as realistic as you can, but then you have to teach them to pass the state standard test as well. And we all know that's not always the perfect match.
No.
Tying a knot is one thing, but searching or ventilating or throwing a ladder or whatever, it has to be done a specific way to pass your MPQ or your firefighter one, firefighter two stuff. And there's not a lot of flexibility in that. Like it has to be done a certain way. But, um, you know, folks are smarter than we give them credit for. I think they can handle it all. I don't think it confuses them that much. It's like, we're like, all right, hey, we're going to teach you this skill. We're going to do we're going to do repetition on this skill. And this is what you're going to do when you test. When the old state man comes and you do your test. Um, the reality is this is the way we function in the department. When you get to the station, you're going to see it done this way. And then this is what we're going to train on this too. Just like search. I mean,
Mhm.
still have that right and left hand search
The
and
dreaded left or right. Yeah.
that curriculum that is totally ineffective and shouldn't even be in there. But they can handle learning targeted searches in recruit school. They can handle it.
Oh, yeah.
It's not an advanced procedure. It's just the right procedure. They can handle VES. They can handle all that stuff, regardless of if it's in the testing standard or whatever. And so teach it to them. Teach it to them. And so what? What if they screw up at the state test and they do something a little off? They're going to take it again. You're not going to fire them. I hope not anyway. After all that investment, you're going to
Yeah.
take it again. Or who cares if they make a 71 on the test? You know?
In the world of medicine, that's still a doctor.
Exactly. So who cares? It's just like just get done and then let's go on and learn, how to function in on the fireground. So it's tough, but I think you just be open and honest with them and don't be afraid to push them into some of these techniques and stuff that we've always considered it's advanced. VES should be a basic skill
Yeah.
because it works. That's what
Mhm.
works. Left and right hand doesn't work.
I can hit a
You
bedroom
can
a
get
lot
lucky.
faster from the outside.
Yeah, you can get lucky on somebody if you happen to go the right way. But you want to play the book, and so go ahead and teach them that stuff right off the bat. You know, uh, the search culture guy out west, Justin
Hmm.
McWilliams, great guy. A little controversial there for a while with a lot of the chiefs and stuff, but um, he was telling me for like their recruit class, they don't even let their firefighters enter a door. They have to go in and out the windows for like the first however many weeks. They're not allowed to use the doors. They're not good enough to use the doors yet. And what they're doing is they're building reps and they're getting them in the mindset is don't automatically think of the door first. The door is easy. Anybody can go through the door. I want you to go in and out of the windows until you're so comfortable going in and out of a window that like you'd almost prefer it. And that way you're leaving the door open for the line. You're even in and out egress, and you're not blocking anything. You're not in the way. And it's very rare that there's a victim at the door. I mean, it's possible they're coming towards the door, but it's rare. And if they are, guess what? the whoever's carrying the line in is going to step on, and then they'll get them out. So you're going in, you know, in the backside and on the second floor, you know, whatever. I thought that was a great strategy, and it's like one of the things we do at smoke divers and we did in recruit school is like we want you never to take your face piece off. Like that's the last. I mean, it's got to be melted and it's got to be impairing you to take it off, because even with a glove over a melted hole is still better protection than taking it off. And so when you're doing rapid dress or when you come out of a drill and we say break it down, that's always the last thing you take off. Some people take their helmet off and their face piece, but we make you take everything else off, and you're standing there with your shorts and your t-shirt, or your uniform pants and your t-shirt and your socks, and you still got the face piece on, and you take it off last.
Building that muscle memory.
Yep, yep,
That whole thought process is that's the very last thing I'm going to do is take my mask off. I like that.
yep. Don't
I
even
like
think
that a
about it,
lot.
because you're uncomfortable, and you just like that becomes another part of your body. Do not take that thing off. So
I like that thing. I like that a
implement
lot.
that tomorrow.
Yep. Yeah, it's coming. No, we got about another week or so, but it's coming. We'll try it out and see how it works. So, with all the things that you are exposed to in your current role, what do you think is some of the big challenges our instructors might be faced with coming up? I mean, they're changing to the new essentials is popping out, other things like that. That you might be more privy to some information sometimes doing what you do than say like me. What things can you think might be challenging instructors in the future?
Changing styles and formats. The newer folks digest stuff in smaller blocks, and so you're gonna have to do a lot of short lessons and keep it moving, and then chain those short lessons together to create the whole lesson. Where we may have spent, you know, 4 hours in the classroom covering something, they're freaking zone out. You better take advantage of multimedia. You better have videos. You better have stuff for them to look at on their own. Incorporate the technology. Incorporate their phones. Have links. Have barcodes. You know, um, and let them use what they use all the time. Nothing wrong with them holding up their phone, scanning the barcode, and watching the video in their hand, because that's the way they digest information. They don't have to
Hmm.
be on the big screen. You know what it is. You've already seen it. And that actually keeps them moving. That keeps them interactive in the class. Maybe there's some materials that you say, you know, download these or grab these 5 barcodes tonight. I want you to watch these videos, and then we're going to talk about it tomorrow. What'd you see? What would you have done different? That kind of stuff. A lot of interactive. A lot of training is a lot of your like required hours of training once you get to the station are going to be on an LMS type platform.
Hmm.
So don't just settle for, you know, words on the screen. Make sure you've got video demonstrations in there, even whether you film them yourself or you pull them in from other sources, so that you have that, and try to work in like hands-on stuff as well. Even if it's like, hey, take the tablet outside, set this up, and do this, and then obviously nobody's watching it, so you got to have a competent person there that's like running the drill or whatever. But it could be a day where the company's running the drill and they're streaming it back to the training center, you know, and he's like, all right, and he gives you a quick critique, and then he moves on, and another station's doing the same thing, and they're streaming it from a phone or whatever. So you're able, as a training officer from a central location, to have input, you know, with the technology. So that's some of the things. Some of the other things that I think are probably not new, but they've been around for a while is, um, I talk about it all the time. It's like when I came on for my recruit school, I already knew how to crank a chainsaw and chain.
Hmm.
I knew it took. you know, 50-to-1 mix or whatever the mix was for that particular engine. And only thing I needed to know was how the fire service used the chainsaw, how to use it on a pitched roof, how to use it on a flat roof, how to use it, da da da. Always can freshen up on trees, and that's always a dangerous, one, because people, it's really probably more dangerous cutting a tree out of the road than it is cutting a hole in
Oh
a
yeah, it's hard to read a bend in a tree.
Yeah, yeah. So that's what I needed to know. But for the last 20 years, the recruits coming in have never even held a chainsaw because they grew up in the city, or their parents hired somebody to do the
Hmm.
work. You didn't have the farm skills, and they're not working in the trades like we did, um, as part-time jobs and all that as much. There's still some. And so you have to slow down a little bit in some of those more technical tasks, and you have to kind of spend a little more time on those. But once they get it, they got it.
Oh
My
yeah,
magic number is 10. If you do something right 10 times in a class setting, then you're pretty set. And
yeah.
that's coupling and uncoupling the face piece, putting the uh, high pressure hose on, taking it off. You do it correctly 10 times, then you know what it feels like, you know how it works, and you're good. If you do it right once or twice, you still got a chance to not quite have it. And if you just have to slow down a little bit, where we didn't have to do that. We were pretty fast.
Yeah, I mean
Get up
because
there and cut a hole on the roof with that chainsaw. All right.
yeah, where
How
you
big
want.
you want it?
Yeah, because I mean a lot of them, and also a lot of us when we come into the fire service, we had vocational skills. I grew up working a farm. So I mean, there was nothing unusual for having to mess with a little bit of something to everything. Or you had guys on their days off, they were a plumber. This guy was a contractor. This guy was a sheetrock man. Everybody had something to back up, a trade to back up into their skill of doing the job. And we're seeing more and more kids coming straight in out of high school for the time they graduate college, and they just don't have those vocational skills. So you're absolutely right. We have to just be able to anticipate that extra time and schedule that extra time, especially when we're doing like recruit classes, because it's going to take longer to get those skills in to where they're proficient.
And it's really interesting. I did a lot of research on this and teaching in decision making classes. The greatest benefit somebody got from working in the trade, when you come to the fire service, it's not the actual trade itself. It's that if you've worked in any trade, you are forced to be adaptable, because
Hmm.
nothing ever works perfect. The house plan says this. I am measuring it with a tape measure, and it's a damn lie. It is not what it says it is. It's too late now. It's
Ain't a
done.
square wall in the house.
It's done. It's done. So we still got to get the pipe in here somehow. So we've got to figure it out. So, it didn't say that we needed a 45 bend and then a 60 bend and then another 45 and a 90. It didn't say that on the plan. It just said 90. So now we got to go get that, and we got to make something. But we'd understand the goal is to get water from here out of here down to this location. And that teaches you adaptability. That's so important for a firefighter, because it doesn't always work. And that's when people say, well, what am I supposed to do when I get to a fire? It depends. What do you see? What's the building construction? What's the fire conditions? There's 100 choices.
Hmm.
There's some basic things, but there's 100 different ways we can attack this. And that's what gets missed when you haven't had to work and apply. You haven't been forced to learn decision making and adaptability. That's when you run into that generation of, they just want to know what you want them to do. They'll do whatever you want them to do, but there's no thought process in, I got option A, B, C, D, E, or F. It's just, they just want one option, and they want to do that every time. And that's hard. You got to build that into the training as well. and now you
Teach
do
those
that with
problem solving
drills.
skills.
Yeah, you do a lot of problem solving, and and you know, I love it. We had some FDIC instructors not too many years ago. They were doing, I forget the name of the class, but it was a lot of decision making. And you pull up to a burn building, it's so sterile. It's like you pull up and you stretch a line, you go in the front door, whatever. So they built a fence in front of the house with a locked gate. They put a car in front of the front door, and it made you do other things. And I was like, that's teaching decision making. You got to adapt. It doesn't stop. You still got to get in there. So what do you do? Do you go a different route? Do you go over? Do you go under? There's a lot of ways to make it happen, but it makes you think and solve that problem, because so many times we get in that rut with training. It's like, there's no furniture in the building.
Hmm.
It's a 3 pallet fire in the corner that you're not allowed to put out. You just got to squirt it just a little bit. And so what are you going to do when you get to the fire? You're going to do exactly what you did in that building. And is it out? No, open the line, open the line. Yeah.
And and you're exactly right. That is a evil that we have to deal with a lot of times, especially like the last class we had. We had 40 people doing their fire one burn in one day, and you've been there. I mean, it's a task just keeping it stoking. I mean, yeah, and it's hard. I would love to have it if we could put the fire out every time. I've got to find a good way that works so we can reset real quickly. Let them put the fire out, but then get it where we can reset really fast. There's got to be a better way than the way we're doing it.
Used to
But
be
it's
diesel fuel. We don't have to use that anymore. Don't use diesel fuel. That's what we used to do. We create the rollovers and everything with it,
well,
flowing over their heads.
years ago, we used to have the guy had his own sawmill. One of the guys that used to do stuff with us,
Get
and he would take a lot of fat lighter and he would cut it into slats and build pallets, out of
yeah.
fat lighter. So you would get that good rollover and everything else out of it. And he was still staying compliant. I mean, and it didn't take nothing to get it going.
Yeah. You got to have a little OSB nowadays.
Hmm.
Still compliant, but you got to have a little bit if you want to create any kind of real fire behavior.
And
You
I
don't
was
have to
listening
float
to
it up
somebody
with it.
I, I was listening to somebody the other day, and they said pine straw actually works better than hay. So I'm gonna have to try that one to see how much different of a smoke condition we get from pine straw. I could see better smoke. I could probably see that.
So we use science for smoke at Smoke Divers. We built barrels that are vent limited that have fans on. We don't use water. We use dry hay. We stick a whole bale of hay in there, light it on fire at the bottom, and control the air. And it's more smoke than you can freaking imagine. I don't know how many cubic feet of smoke we get out of a bale of hay. And you have to work it because you got to, the fire will burn in there and all. But we just got a little electric leaf blower.
Hmm.
Our fan, we put a dimmer switch on it, a little rheostat switch, cut the cord off, put it on so you can control that fan. And it's got about a 8-10 inch pipe coming out. It looks like a freaking moonshine still. And and then your smoke guys can work outside. They're outside the building. They're not in the way. The prop's not in the way. They're cleaner. They're not in that crap all day long. They still have their gear on. They have to fluff it up a little bit, stir it up, add some more to it, and all that. And they have to constantly work it, but it's not like being inside working the barrel like we did. And you just, you like reek for 3 weeks afterwards.
Yeah.
Every time you sweat, you like, ugh, Bermuda.
Hmm. That's it. Uh, so, Chief, we've been going at it for a little while. It's getting pretty close to time. I appreciate you, but the chalkboard's yours. What do you want to write on it for everybody to be able to see?
Um, Train every day. Train every day. That'd be my little motto. And it doesn't have to be full blown, live fire drill, whatever. Sometimes it's good just to get a piece of equipment out that you don't use that much and then use it in the bay. Pull the airbags out. Let's lift up the truck. Let's lift up the battalion car. Delay them when they get a call. Uh, you know, uh, just put your hands on something and work it every day. That's the way you're going to get good at it. And then make sure everybody's familiar. Make sure everybody's familiar with the operation of it, and then maybe you got that for a day that you're going to be busy, and then when you have a slower day, then you actually set up a scenario and use it. But you got to do some type of training every day, something, learn something,
Absolutely. Yeah. Something more than clicking a PowerPoint all day long.
or having the question and answer at the table. That's good too, but you should do that anyway. That's one phase. You should put your hand on something and make it work, at least once a day. Your air pack, a saw, uh, airbag, Hirsch tool, a Matro tool, whatever it is, battery powered tool, the Rescue 42 struts, whatever it is. Set it up, go over it, and then um, you get the newer folks. Everybody used to think, well, you just throw them to the wolves, but get the new folks and say, hey, we're gonna go over the stabilization struts today. Make sure they've done it before, but then give them a little while. Go out there, get them out, and then we're gonna come out there and you're gonna show us how to use them. Because then they're not really an instructor; they're brand new, right? But they're
Hmm.
having to teach you, which is reinforcing their ability to understand it. You're creating that understanding other than just their knowledge.
I like
Big
that.
difference between knowledge and understanding.
Hmm. And it gives them a chance to grow because then you
Yeah,
can go in and say, well, you're halfway right on this. This is why it needs to be different, and gives you a chance to have that open conversation to explain the why.
and
And
build
that
their
way it
confidence.
locks in better.
Yeah, build their confidence. I had a
Yeah.
kid one time, bless his heart. He's a good dude, but that was my thing as battalion chief. I go around, you come, I come
Yeah.
meet you.
Battalion chief goes and blesses their hearts. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. I come and I'm like, hey, welcome to the battalion. You got a good officer here, blah, blah, blah. My expectation is that you know all the tools and equipment on your engine, you know, in a month. By the time I come back over here I'm gonna test you. And I knew the officers could do it and all that stuff, but it puts pressure on them,
hmm
chiefs coming around. I get my pad and paper and sit down. And then after that, you got to get the truck. You got to go to the truck and learn all the tools and equipment on the truck. So that's this guy. So I had a couple trick questions up my sleeve. One of them was, on the Dresden distributor was how many gallons a minute did it flow? How many holes did it have in it? And what size were they? And hardly anybody knew that shit, right? Unless somebody gave them a heads up. I wasn't doing it to show them how much I knew, but I wouldn't give them the answer either. I'd say, it's all right, that's a hard one. Go research it. And when I come back, have the answer. So I'd make them go to a book and find the answer,
hmm
like I had to do as a kid with an encyclopedia, you know? And so they'd always do that. Then I'd say, how much water's on the truck? And we had 500-gallon booster tanks. They'd say 500 gallons. How much water's on the truck? And then, we go from there. And then we'd add up all the different water that was
I
on
mean,
the
how
truck.
many cans you got?
Yeah, but this one kid pulls out the water can. And I said, all right. I said, what is it? This water can, this water extinguisher. What's it used for? Class A fires. How does it work? Well, you pull the pin, and I'm like, all right, how much water's in it? Now he's shook, and this kid was nervous as crap, right? He said, 10? I said, 10 what? 10 gallons? Nope. Now he's shaking. 50? I said, 50 gallons of water in that water can? I said, nope. 70? I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? I said, take a deep breath. I said, go get the water cooler out of the compartment. Go get the Igloo water cooler out of the compartment. So he gets it and he sets it down beside it. And I said, how much water's in there? And he goes, 5 gallons. I said, right. I said, so look at the extinguisher and look at that. He's like, 20. I never let him forget it either.
Mm.
And that stuff's fun, man. It's fun. I wasn't trying to set him up to fail or whatever. And then, it always gets a good laugh. And then they can do that on somebody else later in their career.
Oh yeah, and talk about it
He
20
he
years
is
later.
just
And it's,
nervous
I know
anyway. He's
Chief
nervous.
Rhodes got me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Breslin distributor's a good one.
Yeah.
I'm not giving the answer either, but I will tell you there's 9 holes. Yeah, right there.
Mm-hmm.
And there's 2 different sizes of holes.
Yeah, the one I've got's a little smaller one. It's I don't know. I think it's got like I think 12 holes in it. We were looking at it actually
Not three
today.
brushed and
No, it's no, mine doesn't. It's everything's reversed on it. When I
that right there weighs at least 10 pounds.
Yeah, I think the one I've got's maybe about 5. It's a smaller one. It's actually when it just goes on the end and you drop it down when it opens.
That's one reason I got that, because that was one of my questions. So I keep that in my background.
Mm. One of my biggest questions was always how much energy could be released out of a 4x4 vent hole? That was my big question. Yeah. And my answer was, I can't tell you right now, but I'll tell you before I go to sleep. And I called hell trying to find that answer,
Yeah,
even with Google. I mean,
there's a lot of factors that go in that.
yeah, depends on what variables you got. What's your fuel package? What's
Yep,
your intake air? What's
your
the
heat
size of your
release rate.
intake hole?
Yeah, yeah.
A
The
lot of big,
answer usually with a modern fire load is not enough unless you're putting water on it and you're
right?
changing the energy.
But what I'd come to find out was statistically and scientifically, it will release the energy from a sofa, a megawatt. hmm That
Problem.
just tells me a 4x4 ain't a big enough hole. We need to cut bigger.
And it'll release the energy right then, but as you open it and it gets more oxygen, then you get more energy.
hmm Exactly. It's not going to be long. It's a fast release rate, and then it's going to not be enough.
But that's important to know, because then once you put a little water on it, it's no longer one.
hmm
It's knocked it in half or lower, and now it's plenty big enough
hmm
to let the energy out.
Yeah.
So nothing better than cutting a good hole in the roof.
And say I've always loved hydraulic venting. I always have. I don't know what it is
We
about
did
it.
that too. It works good. Was just something about being on the roof.
I
It's
come
more
up from
comfortable up there, either on the
running a
roof or
roll
straight.
engine, and we didn't have a lot of time to get on the roof. We had to kind of John Wayne it and do what we could do. And but Chief, man, I thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule for being here on the podcast with me, man. I have thoroughly enjoyed this. I could sit here with my hands on the desk and listen to your old stories all day long. I love it. Um,
Got a lot of them.
I mean, I just greatly appreciate it. I appreciate everybody tuning in and listening to us. I mean, I hope everybody can take as much from this as I have. I can't wait to maybe we can do it again. So I greatly appreciate it. Everybody, I want you to take Chief Rhodes' advice. Learn something every day. Embrace somebody. Have that servant mindset. It doesn't matter if they're below you in rank or above you in rank. Nobody says that you can't be a servant towards somebody above you and help them by just being a better person and doing the right thing. Take time and keep learning the craft. Until next time, everybody, this is Uncle Wayne saying, stay safe, keep learning, and we'll see you when the next person comes to the chalkboard. Thank you so much, Chief. I appreciate it.
So I'm going away. Thank you.